Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, please share the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast with a friend, with a colleague. We do appreciate you spreading the show. Give us a good rating and review. It helps us more than you may think. And make sure to check out puritycoffee.com and their new Heroes campaign. They're Purity Heroes. They are matching every new subscription by donating coffee to frontline EMTs, nurses, and doctors. And also, if you're in the healthcare industry, you can get 30% off through their ID Verify system. So check it out today at puritycoffee.com. Folks love what they're doing with the Purity Heroes. And that's appropriate for today's episode because we are talking about immunity today. Such an important topic, especially during our crazy times as they are now. And we have an immunity specialist on the phone with us. Dr. Jamie Fettig is on the line to talk about boosting our immunity. How's it going, Dr. Fettig?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on, Jordan.
Appreciate you joining us, my friend. Can you give us a background on your work in the field of wellness and what brought you to immunity science?
So first, I wouldn't call myself an immunity specialist. I would call myself a wellness specialist. But in order to be well, you have to increase your immunity as part of it. But my background is I was a natural health doctor, chiropractor in practice, and I helped a lot of patients who the doctors gave death sentences to. They said, sorry, you're going to die, go home, good luck, or you're going to die, stay here, good luck, whatever it was. Right. And actually helped a lot of those patients, and, 10, 30, 40 times longer than their death sentence, they're still alive. Many of them still alive today. And so, what it was understanding how physiology and the body and everything functions, and knowing now, okay, here's how we actually improve our wellness. That's how people actually got well. It wasn't treating a disease, it was improving wellness, and the body treated the disease.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely speaking our language, and that seems to be really the worlds seem to be colliding as far as I can tell. This, natural wellness-based functional medicine and the traditional medicine world, and I like where it's headed personally. But I feel that when it comes to our immune system specifically, this pandemic has shown a spotlight, especially here in America, how we treat our immune systems, how we don't consider our immune systems, how we have so many lifestyle choices that are just so detrimental to our immune systems. And as far as I can tell, you take a look at coronavirus, COVID-19, it came out of nowhere. How are we going to protect ourselves if we don't boost our immune systems? Do you agree?
I agree. Every year, every virus that we're exposed to, it has, COVID's been around for 40 years. Flu's been around for hundreds of years, at least that we know of. And every year what happens is those viruses mutate. And now they're just enough different, 0.007%. I think I got the number of zeros right. They're just enough different that our antibodies don't quite fit lock in the key. And so we have to rely on our cellular immunity to deal with it until our body can create those antibodies. And so COVID is not actually new. What's happened is it's a new mutation, like it's done every year for the last 40 years we've been tracking it. And this new mutation is causing a different reaction in our body. Our body's not able to adapt to it. We're not exactly sure what's going on because of that new mutation, just like the flu does every year, just like every other vaccine does every year. In some years, like 2009, the flu virus went crazy and our body couldn't adapt. That was a swine flu. Just like 1976, just like 2008. So that happens regularly. And this is just a different virus. The COVID virus mutated in a way that caused our body not to say, hey, what is this? But if you have a strong immune system, it doesn't matter what the mutation is. Your body will fight it off just like it has every other year.
That makes perfect sense. And I'm sure it's going to vary from case to case on the severity. But again, if this is the first line of defense, I feel like it's almost what we need to be paying the most attention to, especially,
I agree.
We need to take personal responsibility, build our immune systems and discuss this stuff, educate people, right?
I agree. It's the only way to really protect yourself is that you build your immune system. A lot of people, they hush, hooey, strengthen your immune system. Yeah. But yet everybody knows that the weak immune system people get hurt the hardest, they get hit the hardest. So if the weak immune system people get hit the hardest, how is it such a leap? How is it such a hooey, stuff that people say?
Such
say
a good
that
point.
A strong immune system is going to help you. I don't get that.
That is a very profound point.
Yeah, a strong immune system is going to help you if weak immune system people get hit harder. So what do you do to strengthen your immune system? Well, there's many different things that you can do. If you want to get into those now, I can, but we can.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I would love to get into the lifestyle changes that affect this and why they affect it, So start wherever you want to start.
Sure. So the biggest thing I think everybody should know first is that your wellness overall is going to impact your immune system. And with each specific virus or bacteria, there are specific things that you can do that are going to better help your immune system, because different parts of your immune system are going to have a bigger impact on different types of viruses and bacteria. So with COVID specifically, there are things that you can do that are going to have a bigger impact to help your immune system defend you. But overall, you need a strong immune system globally. And the best way to kind of look at that is an army. You have the Air Force, you have the Navy, you have the infantry, you have all these different divisions. And if you've got somebody, who's dropping bombs versus somebody who's shooting a gun versus somebody who's, got a plane, you're going to need different parts of your immune function to deal with those different types of enemies. And it's the same thing with COVID. And so overall, what do you want? You want a strong defense against everything,
right?
So that no matter how it mutates in the future, your body can deal with it. But specifically, since COVID is here today and we won't have a different mutation probably till next year, well, let's deal with, specifically what's going to help you with COVID, right? So number one is vitamin C, right? Everybody is, most people have talked about it. I'm sure you've talked about that before. But the reasons why vitamin C is so specific for COVID is because your body's lining of your lungs, one of its primary jobs is to deal with viruses and bacteria. And vitamin C is essential in that battle, in that process. And most people are deficient in vitamin C. Even if they eat fruits and vegetables and drink orange juice, you probably still don't have enough vitamin C to deal with an onslaught like COVID. And so that's why there's now double-blind studies showing that treatment of COVID patients with vitamin C early on has actually prevented them almost to the 100% rate of getting to any cytokine storm.
Wow.
Right. So some specific amounts of how much vitamin C you need. If you're just trying to prevent or boost and you're not actively infected that you know of, 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day is probably going to be all you're going to need to actually prevent or fight off COVID. If they actually start getting or feel like, oh my gosh, maybe these are some of the symptoms of COVID, you can actually increase that from 5,000 to 10,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. Now, a quick side note is that a lot of people, they can't tolerate 5,000 or 10,000 milligrams of normal vitamin C per day in their diet. They're going to get diarrhea. They're going to get upset stomach. So there's another type of vitamin C called liposomal vitamin C. And it's just a buffered vitamin C. And most people can actually tolerate 20, 30,000 milligrams of that per day before they start getting diarrhea and upset stomach. So that's what you do. Now, what's even better is if you have an active infection and you have a doctor or somebody you can go to who can prescribe IV vitamin C, intravenous vitamin C. They literally take vitamin C, put it in saline solution and inject it directly into your blood.
Whoa.
Right? That has actually been shown to decrease cytokine storms, right? There's a few studies out there actually pointing out, there's nothing conclusive yet, but for sure it's shown over and over again in double-blind studies that IV vitamin C gets a much higher vitamin C rate within your actual blood itself, and that has been linked to many other double-blind studies that shows it gets rid of viruses. Now, one thing I want to say about that, since I said that, is this, that the body doesn't really see different viruses differently. Your body has immune and defense systems that it can deal with any virus, no matter the mutation, whether or not you have antibodies or a vaccine. That's the power of our immune system. Now, the antibody portion that everyone's now talking about, that comes into play if you get exposed to that same virus again.
Right. Now
your body has these quote unquote antibodies and cellular memory, which nobody's talking about, but I'll talk about that. You have this defense where your body remembers this virus, and now it's going to kill it before it even has a chance to say, I'm here, boom, it's dead. Right? That's how powerful and wonderful our immune systems are.
Right.
So the reason why COVID is spreading like it is and wreaking havoc like it is because we've never been exposed to this exact particular type. And so nobody has these antibodies or cellular memory to it. It mutated just enough so that our secondary line of defenses has to actually deal with it, like our macrophages and our lymphocytes. So literally just go around and gobble it up, dismantle it, make it inactive, right? Just like it does with the other 380 trillion viruses that are in your body right now.
That is so fascinating. Does that lend credence to the strategies that a place like Sweden is taking, saying keep the elderly at home, keep the immuno-compromised at home, we'll keep going around to develop these. Does that lend credence to that kind of strategy?
It does. The word that everyone's using with that is called herd immunity. So what does herd immunity really mean, since you brought it up to talk about it real quick? Herd immunity means that enough people have got infected that when somebody who's infected goes out in the public, whoever they're exposed to, they have antibodies, so they don't pass it on to anybody, and now the virus doesn't get passed on anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be more than antibodies. Remember, you can have cellular memory of immunity as well. It doesn't just have to be the antibody, right? So some people will get exposed to this virus and they'll have such a good immune system that they won't ever get to the point of making antibodies. So they'll do an antibody test and they'll never actually test positive for antibodies.
Wow, really? That's fascinating.
They'll have cellular memory for this virus. So if they get exposed again, it still won't be a big deal in their body.
Whoa, I did not know that. I was going to ask you to extrapolate on that cellular memory a little bit.
Sure. Cellular memory is the same thing as antibody memory, but it's different types of cells. So you have T cells and B cells and lymphocytes and macrophages. And you have all these different types of cells that deal with our immune function. And antibodies are just one of them. IgG and IgM, they're just one of the types of immunity that our cells that our immune system uses to fight off viruses and bacteria. You can actually have cellular memory in the macrophages and the lymphocytes. Don't quote me on that exactly, but there are cells within the immune system. I can't remember which they are right now off the top of my head. But there are cells in the immune system that actually have memory for viruses, even though you don't have antibodies for those viruses.
That is fascinating. That's really, I love that kind of education because, like you said, that's not getting discussed. So,
yep. So, and going back to the herd immunity, and also before I forget too, I want to say too that melatonin is also a very specific supplement that people can take that's going to help them with COVID.
Melatonin. Wow. Why is that?
Yes, melatonin. Yep. So melatonin is something that's not necessarily going to help prevent it, but once you have the disease, it's going to help the body get rid of it. Now, when I say it doesn't help prevent it, I think it personally does, but there's not any studies showing that. There's only anecdotal evidence. So I'm just making the distinction for your listeners, but there are studies showing melatonin has a huge part that once you actually get infected of helping your body to get rid of the infection.
That is fascinating. Right? I haven't heard that.
So if one of the, the quantities, just because people like quantities, is that, for helping to prevent, I think 2, 4, 10 milligrams per day is a good number. Not that you'd want to maintain 10 forever, but 2 to 4 is a number that you could maintain forever. I wouldn't suggest it, but it's not going to be harmful.
Sure.
Now you think you're getting symptoms, up that to 10, 20 milligrams. You're pretty sure you have the symptoms or you got a test positive, up that to 50 to 100 milligrams per day. Now, the key is you want to be taking it between late afternoon and before 10 o'clock evening so that it doesn't, mess up with your natural hormone and body cycles. But you take that up to, 50 to 100, 200 if you have a topical cream, and it's going to greatly, significantly increase the body's ability to actually fight off the COVID virus specifically.
That is wild.
So that's another one that you can do. We can go back and we can talk about generally other things you can do to increase and boost your immune system. Like the biggest one that not a lot of people talk about is refined sugar decreases your immune function by 20% for up to hours after eating it, right? So you literally will have 1/5 of your immune function gone, decreased, just by eating refined sugars for hours after you eat it.
That's what I was saying when I was talking about our lifestyle choices, especially in the United States. We have this sugar addiction. We have this, as Dr. Coffee, my co-host puts it, this diabesity epidemic. And people are just sick all the time. If you go to these places.
More than just diabetes. Heart disease, a major contributing factor to heart disease, kills 600,000 people in America a year, is sugar, refined sugar.
Yes. It's all that sugar. And what I'm saying is a lot of cultures, the cultures that don't drink soda don't have this wild sugar intake, it seems to me. And it makes everyone sick.
It's just soda. The problem is that the average American eats 300 pounds of sugar a year. That's almost a pound a day. Go look in your kitchen, that 5-pound bag of sugar. You are eating that every week.
Wow.
Every week you're eating that 5-pound bag of sugar. Why? Because they put it in almost every
That's
food.
True. They sneak it in everything.
Can or package or shelf. And what I always say is that read the ingredients. If an ingredient rhymes with gross, it's a sugar, right? Sucrose, fructose, high fructose corn syrup. If it rhymes with gross, that's sugar. Don't eat it. It's gross.
I love that.
What I always say is that if if sugar were studied as a drug and presented to the FDA with all the known information about it today, saying, hey, we want to use this as a drug or a food additive today, there is no way in the world that sugar would be approved as a food additive today. Never.
Wow.
Never.
That's a really
But
good
it's
point.
been grandfathered in, so we keep eating.
That is a very good point. Oh, I love that. We're speaking the same language here, Dr. Fettig. Before we get off of immunity and lifestyle choices, how does inflammation play into this? Because I know that if you're in an inflammatory state, you're more prone to diseases. It's got to be the same way with viruses, right?
An inflammatory state, it's a fight or flight response, right? So your immune system is related to inflammatory processes, but not directly, quote unquote, to a virus, but it does affect it. So let me explain what I mean by that. So when your body is in an inflammatory state, a flight or flight response is usually what's causing that. Meaning that in the old days, if you see a tiger, you need to run away or fight it, one or the other. Otherwise, you're dead, and nothing else in the body matters. Sex doesn't matter. Digestion of food doesn't matter. No other function in your body matters if that tiger eats you. So what the body does in that fight or flight stress response is it takes all the available energy it can and puts it towards all the systems that are needed to either fight that tiger or run away from that tiger. And that's it. The other system is on secondary byproduct shutdown. So when we're in this inflammatory response, what's happening is the immune system is not an immediate need. The immune system is, if you die from a tiger, who cares if you can fight off the next virus in a week? You're dead. So the immune system doesn't get the energy it needs to do its day-to-day functions. And if you are in a pro-inflammatory state, almost always, not always, but almost always, that is caused by that fight or flight response stress in the body. And so it's going to be shutting down the immune system as a secondary effect because that is not necessary to my immediate survival from this.
Makes perfect sense. So if we are, for instance, we got a bad diet full of sugar, we're not sleeping right, we're in an inflammatory state, we're feeling anxious all the time, that is going to put us more at risk. So we have to have kind of the overall wellness and the supplemental wellness established, as you said earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing I like to make about this point here is that when you are in this pro-inflammatory fight or flight stress fear response, the fear response also actually shuts down our cognitive prefrontal brain functions to some extent. Our ability to rationally think gets shut down from the fear chemicals released in our body.
It's the COVID fever. So, it's different than the COVID itself. Yes, that comes along with it. The fear and the panic and the shutting off of your logical brain.
And that fear also shuts down your immune function.
Whoa.
Right? So you want to increase your immune function, you have to get yourself out of that fear state because fear is just like sugar. It shuts it down, for periods of hours. While if you're constantly in the fear, except for when you're sleeping, your immune system is suppressed. Your immune system gets suppressed by the sugar. So it's this net effect that I talk about. You have to do more good to strengthen your immune system than you do to decrease it. That's how you fight off every and any disease.
Absolutely.
The reason why we're still around on this planet, and I like to point this out to people, the reason why we're still around on this planet is because your immune system and your ancestors' immune systems have fought off every virus and bacteria ever known to man, period. Right? That's why we're still here. And we're still here because we have strong immune systems and not weak ones. And that means that not only doing things to increase your immune system like vitamin C and melatonin, but net effect, stop decreasing your immune system with sugar and fear and refined foods and dead food and all the toxins and chemicals from cleaning stuff, but these all affect our body's ability to fight off disease.
Yes. And
not just COVID, but cancer, but all the other things that we have as quote unquote diseases. Our immune function is 80% involved directly in most diseases that we have, its ability to actually fight it off or not.
It's all linked, right? And how about stress? And that's why I think it's such a shame when people are essentially being paid and profiting off of fear. That's what's so rough is that they should, in a way, be held accountable on some sort of health concern level. Because if everybody's stressing, stress kills, man. Reduces your lifespan, reduces your immune system, all of that.
Yes, I agree with some of those comments, but here's the counterpoint I'd like to make. You said these words, so I'm going to say it to your listeners. taking personal responsibility for your own body's ability to fight off any virus, bacteria, disease that comes your way. That's number one, because no one else is going to do that for you. You don't hear the news shouting, improve your immune system. You don't hear, President Trump or Fauci shouting, improve your immune system. No one's doing that. You have to do that.
You're right.
By the same token, guess what? The news reports what gets them ratings.
Yes.
So if you don't watch the news, they're not going to report the fear, stress-based stuff. So sure, maybe we can blame them some that they're reporting this stuff, but I promise you, if nobody watched it, they wouldn't report it.
I love it,
so
man.
We can't
I love
really
that
just
take.
blame them. We can't really just blame them. Now, could they also make an educated choice as someone who is in a position of power to say, you know what, this isn't beneficial? Yes, they could.
That would be
the best
nice.
analogy I heard is if you go into a theater and you yell fire, that's a felony.
Right.
There's not a fire. Right. So could there be some accountability? Could they take some responsibility? I'm not saying they shouldn't have no responsibility, but if we as Americans didn't listen to it, they wouldn't report it. That's the bottom line.
Well, I like your take because, again, it puts the power back in our hands. And that's really what it's about, is controlling your own, focusing on what you can control and letting go of the rest, as the great Dr. Joel Wade said. Exactly. So listen, you've given a great scientific overview of a lot of things that we've discussed on this show, but you've gone deeper than we've ever gone. We know about the lifestyle choices. We know about supplementation. The melatonin was a great new take. Let's get a little bit off the beaten path and a little bit more wacky here. I'm a huge fan of cold therapy. I know there are some studies on cold therapy and immunity. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, there's not some. There's actually a lot. So like one of the best examples, everyone says, oh, compare Sweden to Norway. And you asked me about that, so we kind of got off topic. We can get back to it, but perfect segue back into it. Right? Norway is the country that has more saunas and more cold baths than any other country in the world.
Love it.
And their percentage of death rate and COVID rate and everything about this is one of the lowest.
Wow.
Right?
Go figure.
Now, a lot of people go, oh, well, they're social distancing, and that's why Sweden has higher numbers. Is it? They also eat more fish and fish oil.
Yeah.
Is it? Right?
Right.
So when you start seeing and understanding the true patterns underneath and knowing data and be able to remember the data so that when you hear other data, you can start assimilating and tying the two together. I can explain every country and their death rate. And in fact, on my website, covidperspective.com, I've actually gone on to explain some of the top countries and why their infection rates are, what they are compared to other countries, that are more in the spotlight. I haven't gone into every country in the world, but you give me enough time and I could find, if I don't know, I could find and tell you why so many of these countries, right? Sunlight is a huge one, right? Sunlight promotes vitamin D. Sunlight promotes, so many processes in our body, the infrared light, the red light, so many things from sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're told to stay inside and not go outside. Well, when people leave this quarantine, there's going to be a spike. Mark my words. When people leave this quarantine, there is going to be a spike of other infections because your immune system is now weak. It's like a little kid, right? Boy, I'm really getting off topic with cold therapy now, but I'll skip that.
This is great. Go, Dr. Fettig. This is great.
Cold therapy is huge. Cold therapy is wonderful. There are tons of studies, not only just in Norway. I use Norway as an example because you mentioned Sweden earlier, but there's actually scientifically double-blind published studies on cold therapy and how it boosts your immune function.
Wow.
Now, whether you jump into an ice bath or whether you do the cryogenic stuff, that's all the craze lately, it doesn't matter. If your body is going through the cold and heat cycles, it's going to improve the function of your immune system.
Okay, well, now you're my favorite new guest. We do appreciate you because I am a huge fan of cold therapy, and I love to hear that. Let's go even deeper then, And this is a subject that I know is getting a ton of scientific research behind it. We were talking to Amita Chopra from Harvard Medical about the benefits of meditation and its effect on telomeres and lifespan. Does meditation have any sort of relation to immunity?
It completely does. And I would clarify, it's not even meditation, right? It can also be prayer. It can also be, there's so many different things that produce the same brainwave pattern in the body that meditation does.
Wow.
Right. So when you talk about the studies of meditation, you can also talk about all the studies of prayer. You can also talk about, many different things that cause the brain, biofeedback techniques, right? There's many different things that cause the brain waves to go into those same patterns that meditation.
So fascinating.
And those brainwave patterns have been studied so many different ways by so many different places. And yeah, it's the overall effect of health and healing on the body. Is that the biggest thing and the most direct thing is that when you're in a meditative state, you are not in a flight or flight state. When you're in a meditative state, your body is shunting energy to all the long-term beneficial, healthy things that your body needs, like your immune system, like digestion,
Makes
like
perfect sense.
cellular division, right? So all of those things are increased when you're meditating because you're not in the fight or flight mode anymore. Simplest way to, the biggest, easiest way for most people to understand it.
This has been one of the most enlightening episodes I've done on this podcast, Dr. Fettig. I have to thank you and congratulate you on dropping some incredible knowledge here. I know my listeners are wondering where they can get more, learn more about you, and learn more about your work.
Yeah, I have books on Amazon. The Creator's Manual for Your Body, 12 Secrets of Being Slim, Sexy, and Slender for Life. I have a website I specifically made for COVID, covidperspective.com. You just Google my name, Jamie, Jamie, Fettig, Fettig. You'll find a bunch of stuff that I've done in my past about, health and wellness and healing. But, at the end of the day, going back to, how to increase your immune function, how to increase your body's function is that everything you do either takes away from your body's ability to heal and be well, or it adds to it. That's it, everything. Now, the key is, imagine one of those old-fashioned scales, like the scales of justice in, America at the Washington, D.C., like you have, tips and it tilts one side to the other. You put stuff on one side to measure stuff on the other side. Those old-fashioned scales are the perfect example, is that for everything you do that decreases your health, you put a penny in that one side. And for everything you do that increases your health, you put a penny in the other side. And the key to being well, the key to longevity, the key to being disease-free is making sure that you have more pennies on the wellness side than you do on the disease side. You don't have to give up everything that's bad for you. You don't have to do everything that's good for you, but you have to do more of what's good and what's bad so your scale is tipping so that you have more in the wellness side.
What a wonderful philosophy.
And how do you tell that? How do you tell if your scale is tipping? Well, you look at not just whether or not you get the cold or flu or COVID, you look at the entire function of your body. How is your entire body functioning? Right? So that includes your immune system, right? So if you have lower energy than you did last year, that means you're doing more towards disease. If you aren't sleeping as well as you did last year, you're doing more towards disease. If you are getting more emotional, you're doing more towards disease. If your period pain is getting worse, you're doing more towards disease. If your period pain isn't healing, you're not doing enough towards wellness. Now, I say, and this can be anything, right? Anything in your body as a symptom function of how you're going about your day-to-day life. If you just can't remember stuff as well anymore, you're not putting as much in your wellness. Wow. Now, as we age, our body, our DNA, our coding starts to break down. As we age, we start to accumulate toxins. So what you have to do as you get older is you generally have to do a little bit more than you did when you were 20, when you were 10. Right? Our body is more resilient when it's younger because it works better, just like our car, right? When your car gets older, you have to do a little bit more to it to maintain it.
But that doesn't mean to stop maintaining it. In fact, that's just more of a reason to double down.
Exactly. You just do more towards your wellness and or less towards disease. And when you do that, your immune function, your immune system will take care of any virus that ever comes its way thrown at it in the future. Now, I say that meaning that, there's genetic mutations, there's inherited genetic stuff, there's whatever, not that our body repairs DNA damage. It's got backup systems upon backup systems. So it's not like, it's in your DNA, you're set in stone. No, it's more of like the DNA is more of like a blueprint. It's more of like this is potentially how it might be.
Right.
But if you have a better builder, right, he can correct the blueprint flaws. And that's exactly what your body does. Your body can actually correct flaws in your DNA as it transcribes it to RNA. Your body can actually take the proteins that it's making from the RNA and actually correct them, right? So that they're functioning even though the DNA was messed up.
100%.
That's how many backup systems upon backup systems your body has. So it's not like, throw my hands in the air, my DNA said I couldn't. No, but if your DNA is messed up, you might have to do more in the wellness pot than someone else does.
Exactly.
Sorry, it's your bucket in life, but if you do more, it won't affect you.
That's exactly right. And I think you need to take that belief no matter what, because again, that means you're in control. And I do believe once you get a little momentum, you start to see that this stuff is real. Once you take control of your health and you first of all, get rid of the beliefs that you're not in control of your health, and then really double down and take control, man, you gain some momentum, you feel powerful, and you really can transform your life and your wellness.
Yeah, and the big thing I always, I found through the last my 20 years of seeing patients and treating patients and helping people and writing books, and now I train hundreds of doctors around the United States. The biggest thing I've seen is that people have no idea what it's like to be well. They have no idea, and so they think sugar's better, right?
Right.
But once you actually start understanding what wellness is really like, sugar is no longer that great. Because why? Because you can get a healthy form of something that's sweet, right? And now you get the same joy and satisfaction from a healthy sweet place as you did the quote unquote sugar, and yet you still get all the other benefits of being well.
So much
And
more
most people
rewarding.
don't really
Yes.
know how well really feels until they do, and now they go, I'm never going back.
It's a really good point. It's well put, Dr. Fettig. This was wonderful. Let's wrap it up here. Anything you want to add at the end here, just as far as the pandemic, or any advice you want to throw out there, maybe some mindset advice before we wrap up the show?
Couple things that you said there. So I'll go back to the herd immunity real quick, and then a couple other things. So the herd immunity. So the other last thing I really like to make about the herd immunity is this: is that when you go out and you don't, and you're constantly coming in contact with all these viruses, what's happening is that your body can build an antibody to a weaker COVID-19, right? And so when you get exposed to the more stronger COVID-19, you're more likely to be able to fight it off because it might be slightly different. Because even COVID-19 has slight changes in it around the world when they test it, right?
Wow.
So herd immunity, not only does it help us to get to the point where nobody's getting infected anymore, but it helps more people not get the extreme bad form of it. Because most people, it's like a natural selection process in nature. When you get a bad form of COVID, you're going to stay home because you can't leave. You're less likely to infect people. When you get a mild form of COVID and you go out and you infect other people, they're more likely to get the mild form. But now when the stronger form comes around, their body's more easily able to fight it off, and they're less likely to get those severe symptoms, right? So, and eventually what herd immunity really means, that when we got enough people infected, nobody can spread it. But here's the beauty that nobody talks about with herd immunity either, is that when you have been infected, you're no longer infectious, right? So you're past the infection period. For days to months, depending on the person and the virus, you will actually shed inactive viruses that anybody else who comes in contact with you will naturally build those antibodies to, just like a vaccine, but no toxins or preservatives, because it's a natural inactive virus with nothing else that someone else shed around you.
Wow.
Now you get exposed to it, your immune system forms antibodies to it, so that if you ever actually come in contact with the live virus, you're less likely to get it as well. And so so I'll leave it at that. I got more I could say about that.
Oh
but
my
let's leave
gosh,
that.
that's really wild. Because again, that's like, we talk about these second waves. We talk about this stuff. Maybe we need to think outside the box when it comes to this sort of quarantine thing.
Yeah, that's where I wasn't going to go to, but yes, right. Quarantine is you put away the sick people and you let the healthy people go out. And sure, yes, they might and will spread it around if you want that. Because when people are just like that, with the sicker people, they're going to stay home. They can't go out. That's probably a more dangerous form, 0.01% different than what we're normally seeing. And so those people stay home, and or they have weaker immune systems, right? It's a combination, It's not just one. But anyway, but yes, there is a lot to be said. And that's why, going back to the Sweden herd immunity thing, to Belarus, to Mexico, to Brazil, right? Mexico started doing social distancing, but nobody's following in Mexico. They need the money. They can't. But but those countries, none of those countries are doing social distancing. Why aren't their numbers 10 times higher than everyone else's? Nobody can explain that to me. I have explanations for it, but I've never seen Fauci or anyone else explain it. You compare Sweden to any other country other than Norway around it, it's right on par. But even if it is higher, if they're doing almost no social distancing, why is it not 10 times more? But I'll let you guys answer those questions. I'm not going to go into it. I have my theories and opinions. But
man, we might need to do a follow-up, Dr. Fettig. We'll contact you.
Sure
we should do a follow-up. I would love that.
We sure can. But we're going back to some of the other questions. The mindset thought, right? The mindset thought is huge, right? Fear is a chemical in your body. And that chemical, along with any other emotion, is a chemical in your body. And your mindset determines those chemicals released. And those chemicals affect other chemicals. So when you say something about mindset, right? Is your mindset is huge. That's why the placebo effect. That's why the nocebo effect. It's 25, 50% better results sometimes than the freaking drugs themselves.
Right.
right, is because the mind is so powerful, because the mind controls our body chemistry. What you think about, right, manifests physically in your body, period. And so knowing, starting, what I always say is that controlling your mind, and I don't like saying it like that, but paying attention, like here, you can't really control the thoughts in your head. You can decide what thoughts in your head you pay attention to. You have 100% choice over what thoughts you give your energy to. You're going to have thoughts that come and go, unless you're a Buddhist monk who's been meditating for 20 years and you can literally silence the voice in your head.
Right.
And there's no more thought in your head. Unless you can do that, which is hard. I'm not saying you can't. Most people can't. Everyone listening to this message, you can 100% control which thoughts you pay attention to.
Yes.
Which thoughts you keep going back to. Which thoughts you focus on. Which thoughts you think more about. That's what you can control. And so you may hear 200,000 people dead, and you don't hear 475,000 people dead every year of the flu on average in the world, but you hear the 200,000 number of COVID dead, and you can continue to think about that thought, or you can not focus on it. You can think about your dog. You can think about your favorite hobby. You can think about, your person that you love in your life, your children. You can change what you focus on. And as you start to stop giving attention to certain thoughts, those thoughts won't, your brain is your slave. It only brings to your awareness through your reticular activating system. Sorry, I'm getting too deep. Your brain only brings awareness to your thought, your conscious mind, what it thinks you want.
Yes.
So if you stop paying attention to those negative thoughts, the brain is going to stop bringing them to your awareness eventually. Because it says, oh, you don't want this anymore. Okay, I won't do it anymore then. Right? So we totally can control our mindset, not by controlling our thoughts, I don't think, but by controlling what we pay attention to.
Which thoughts we cultivate. That's exactly right. And I don't think it's about shutting out information or dismissing anything. I think it's about recognizing that it is simply not healthy to inundate the human mind with frightening data on a constant basis. It's just not. It's not good for you. It's not helping the pandemic. It's not helping anything. So I think that's probably a place that we find common ground.
I have friends in Russia, and they lived there, during the Soviet era. And in Russia and other communist parties, they were forced to have a radio in their house on all the time, 24/7. That was the law. And the only person who could broadcast on that radio station was the government.
Yeah.
And I think about, and I go into all these stores and these airports and everywhere I travel in the last month, and I'm like, everybody's blaring the same message repeatedly, almost like it's Soviet era time. And this is the only option to believe what everyone else is saying. You don't have to have that TV on.
Yes.
You don't have, you could turn it on for 10 minutes to see what happened today, see if things are getting any better.
Precisely.
You can choose which channel you listen to.
Mm-hmm.
You can also not turn it on at all and listen to other people who are using facts and data, because there's many people out there like myself. Just so everybody's clear, I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not a Clinton fan. I'm not a Bernie fan. I think all politicians suck as long as they're a member of any party, right or left. I follow the data, right? Follow the data, right? So people are following the data, and you can, if you listen to it, if you pay attention to it, you can find it. You can find the people who are following the data, right? Now, if you love Trump, great. If you hate Trump, great. Doesn't matter. This time the data is pointing to the fact that, this is not a whole bunch different numbers-wise. I'm not saying the disease-wise, the progression-wise, or the deaths-wise. Numbers-wise, this is not really much different than the typical flu.
Fascinating stuff.
Number of people infected, number of people hospitalized, number of people total dying, right? You may have just seen the study from yesterday in New York State. 21.2% of the people seropositive, meaning they have antibodies to the actual COVID virus in New York City. 21%. Well, swine flu reached herd immunity at 20%. The flu reaches herd immunity at 10%. The Spanish flu reached herd immunity at 30%. Right? The Hong Kong flu of 1967 reached herd immunity at 15%.
Yeah.
Right. So when New York City's at 21% have tested positive for this, where are we on that death scale? Right. Again, I'll let you answer that if you want. I present a lot of facts and my opinions on my own website. Here today, I'm only presenting facts.
Absolutely love it, Dr. Fettig. We need to follow up. I look forward to a follow-up with you. Can you give that URL one more time?
Yep, just covidperspective.com. And I chose that website because, I'm not saying that COVID is harmless. I'm not saying we should ignore it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do anything about it. We should have perspective on it, right? Is that, yes, people are dying from COVID. It is real, and it's going to continue for a while. But let's put those death numbers into perspective so we can make appropriate choices, right? We would never shut down nobody allowed to drive to save 40,000 lives from car accidents. We would never tell people you can't smoke to save 1.6 million lives. We would never tell people that you can't eat sugar to save 600,000 lives.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
we just need to have perspective on what do we do based on data. Now, when this all started, maybe that was the appropriate response because we didn't have enough data.
100%.
And the data we did have seemed pretty horrible.
Right.
But now it's time to reevaluate the data, right? Not the political party ties, not the message from whatever news source you listen to, whether you're Republican or Democrat. It's time to reevaluate the data and see what is the most appropriate choice based on the new data that we now have that we didn't have 2 months ago.
This is very well put, sir. Succinct, powerful overview. And like you said, we got to take responsibility, do what we can in our own lives. Dr. Fettig, This has been wonderful, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know you did. Make sure to follow us, hit subscribe, make sure you give us a good rating and review. We do appreciate that. This is Dr. Jamie Fettig and Jordan River signing off, wishing you an extraordinary day. We'll see you next time on the Coffee, Health, and Science Podcast.